This November, Terre Haute voters will decide who will lead the city as mayor. Tonight, the candidates, Republican incumbent Duke Bennett and Democratic challenger Brandon Sackbun, face off on the issues. From your local election headquarters, this is the Terre Haute mayoral debate.
And thank you for joining us for the Terre Haute mayoral debate at our WTWO studio, your local election headquarters. I'm Mike Tank. Well, on November 7th, Hoosier voters will head to the polls for the municipal election. And in Terre Haute, voters will be deciding who they want to serve as the city's mayor. Running in the race is Republican Duke Bennett, the incumbent, and his challenger, Democrat Brandon Sackbun. Bennett is currently serving his fourth term as mayor. The Terre Haute native graduated from North High School. He attended Ivy Tech and has a bachelor's degree from Indiana Wesleyan University. Sackbun is a former Army Ranger. He currently works part-time teaching math in the Vigo County School Corporation while serving as an officer in the Indiana National Guard. He graduated from South High School and earned a bachelor and master's degree from Indiana University. Now, here are the rules of this debate. All questions will be posed to both candidates. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to give their answer. If a candidate wants to respond to their opponent, they must request a rebuttal from the moderators. Rebuttals will get 30 seconds. When time is up, the candidates will hear a sound alerting them that time is up. Now let's head to our moderators, Dana Winklepleck and Nicole Christine.
All right, thank you so much, Mike, and a big thank you to our candidates for being here tonight, and a thank you to all of you out there who are watching this debate. I'm Dana Winklepleck.
And I'm Nicole Christine. We also want to thank our viewers who submitted questions that they'd like to ask the candidates. We'll be asking several of those tonight, including our first question of the night, which comes from Josh H. Josh asks, what is your primary reason for running in this election? Mr. Bennett won the coin toss, and we'll answer first. You get 60 seconds.
All right, very good. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. You know, when I first got involved in politics, it was all about making the community a better place, providing an option on the other side to have a good two-party system. And so as I've worked through this over the years, I've really felt like we've made so much progress each time. And why I'm running again is because things are going extremely well from the perspective of us implementing our community plan and have a lot of things in the process, and I like to be able to see those things through. So, you know, you have to want to be in politics, I guess. That's a big thing. You have to want to be a public servant, and I've really enjoyed that to this point, and I want to continue that. And so that's what challenged me. You know, you go through this and decide, is it really what I want to do? And it's absolutely what I'd like to do for another term. So that's why, you know, I think just and being able to continue the work that we're doing and do great things for the city.
And Mr. Sackbun, you have 60 seconds.
30 years ago, my father, Dr. Vanera Sackbun, a Cambodian genocide survivor, and my mother, Mrs. Carleen Sackbun, moved to the city of Terre Haute to chase their version of the American dream, which for my father was cheap property tax at the time and the opportunity to bring life into this world as an OBGYN. Over the past 30 years, this community has raised me, it has challenged me, and it has led me to this stage. I'm thankful to be an American citizen. I'm thankful to have served our great nation as an officer in the 75th Ranger Regiment. I'm thankful to serve our state as an officer in the Indiana National Guard. I took my next fight to America's frontline battle of education and serve as a part-time substitute teacher, and I'm ready here today to serve you, the people of Terre Haute, as your next mayor. I'm thankful for this opportunity and ready to share over the next 60 minutes my platform as we look as where we need to grow as a city.
Thank you. We turn now to our first category of the night, which is the local economy and the budget. Economic development, of course, always on the minds of community members. So here is our question. What plans do you have to make Terre Haute more competitive? Mr. Sackbun, you have 60 seconds.
As we take a second to kind of analyze where we're at, there's a couple of statistics that are quite jarring. We're 90th out of 92 counties when it comes down to our median income. Our population's declined on back-to-back censuses. When we look at economic development, it is so much more than jobs. We're currently playing checkers when other communities are playing chess. And what I mean by that is when we do bring in jobs, we have to look at the location of where they are within the city, and we have to tackle a second big issue with that, and that's housing. Housing within city limits. I look and say, how do we make Terre Haute more competitive? It's a robust quality of life plan. It's a robust housing plan focused on revitalizing our neighborhoods, connecting employers to employees, and allowing the city to grow through a very strong education system. Those are just some of the ways that we can become more competitive. It's not a one-size-fits-all for any city, but those are my thoughts towards how we can make Terre Haute more competitive.
And Mr. Bennett, you have 60 seconds.
You know, we've had numerous successes over the last years. I mean, you can rattle off several companies that have located here, in the process of locating here. We're doing the right thing because they think this is the place to do business. Intech being the newest one. To bring, you know, a high-tech battery-related facility here with 650 jobs, they're going to pay over $70,000 a year. They selected Terre Haute in Vigo County because they believe this is the right place to be. All the work that we've done to get us to that point makes us competitive. There are more things in the hopper too, so we have more people that feel that way. You know, to be competitive, you have to have several things. We have to have a workforce to be able to meet the demand of these companies. That's an issue. That's a challenge all across Indiana, not just in Terre Haute. So we're working our workforce development plan, working with our local Work One office, had a couple of seminars recently that allowed them to tap into some funds, and the next step is childcare and housing are both key components of this to make us more competitive.
Well, the east side and the south side of Terre Haute surely have continued to grow in recent years. The next question, do you see opportunities for development in the northern part of the city? Mr. Bennett, 60 seconds.
You know, there's opportunities everywhere. A lot of times when businesses decide to, most of the time, they're going to be where they can make money. They want to be where the traffic is, the car traffic, pedestrian traffic. The north side has had a lot of successes, but there's obviously an opportunity to do even more. It just comes down to where these businesses want to invest their money. You know, we've done infrastructure improvements in the north end to help facilitate that kind of growth. We've seen things happen up there. We've done Lafayette Avenue and obviously Fort Harrison prior to me becoming mayor, and we're going to work on the south part of Lafayette. That's the kind of thing that the city can do to make sure that we're priming that area for development. So we've seen some successes. I think more will come as there's an opportunity for these private businesses to invest and make money.
And Mr. Sackbun, you have 60 seconds.
Currently, when you look at Vigo County, 11,000 people who live here, who don't live here, commute in to work. And 3,000 people who live here commute out. We actually want to target the reverse of that ratio. And North Terre Haute is an integral part of that solution. Generations of Hautians receive paychecks from the companies that once occupied the factories within North Terre Haute. My vision for North Terre Haute is partnering with some of our local universities to launch an Industrial Park 3.0 to hopefully entice some of the successes that we've seen in southern Vigo County into the north side of town. Infrastructure is a key component to this, not just roads, sidewalks, but stormwater, wastewater drains, as well as our utility companies all come to play. The north side neighborhoods have been neglected for a little bit over the years, and we've got to reverse that trend, or else the lights will shut off for those homes.
And we are going to turn now to the city budget. What city budget items would you prioritize? And are there any changes to the budget that you would like to see? Mr. Sackbun, you have 60 seconds.
Absolutely. When I review the city budget, there are some great successes when it comes to public safety. However, I am concerned with some areas, specifically the streets department and city engineering. We've got to invest in ourselves, our roads, our sidewalks. How are we connecting our neighborhoods to the economic engines of our city? Budgets are so much more than just numbers. They are a communication tool. They communicate our priority. Currently, we've got a semi-balanced budget and we're just going along. But we've got to take a hard look in the mirror and invest in some of the many assets of our city. Parks department, we've seen some declines in the parks budget over the years. Recently, we had a salary increase of 3%. As mayor, here's my salary increase. 5% to the city employees who make a bottom third of the paychecks. 3% for those in the middle third, and only 1% for those at the top. We've got to invest in the city employees, the guys and gals who are fighting the fight every day.
And Mayor Bennett, you have 60 seconds to respond.
You know, we've got a very solid budget. Our budget next year, roughly $120 million. It's balanced. It is 100% balanced and has been for 8 straight years. Next year will be 9 straight years of a truly balanced budget without any question. So anybody would say otherwise is incorrect. There's rules about all the different revenues we get. You can't just spend money on things that you want to spend it on. They're very strict on how we do that. The city of Terre Haute has lost over $188 million to property tax caps since 2009. We're losing $17 million this year that we were approved to collect. And so in order to give pay raises, first of all, you have to negotiate those through bargaining agreements. We already have bargaining agreements for the next few years. No changes are coming to that. The money has to come from somewhere. So my budget reflects all of the things that we talk about from a city perspective: infrastructure, employees, and delivery of services. And we have a very, very strong budget and very strong reserves now.
I'd like to rebuttal that if possible.
Yes, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal, Mr. Sackbun.
When we take a look at the city budget, there's several line items that are not balanced, and it's starting with the golf courses. To keep kind of going down this, the property tax caps have been in effect for over 16 years. And at this point, it's important to note that here's how you beat the property tax caps. You grow your city. The numbers show that the city of Terre Haute, it's not even stagnant, it's declining. So we've got to grow the city to grow our tax base to afford some of the many ideas that multiple candidates will talk about.
So I'd like to
And
rebut.
Mayor, you get 30 seconds.
Our city is growing. Our assessed values have gone up, yet our tax caps have gone up. So this year, $17 million is the highest it's been when we've got more assessed value than we've had the previous years. So it's just not, it's simply not true.
And Mr. Sackbun, you have the final rebuttal in our format for 30 seconds.
I find it hard to believe that the United States Census Bureau on back-to-back censuses indicates that our city is shrinking, that we can stand here today and say, well, it's actually growing. Folks, these are the numbers. It's showing a population decline. In 1970, the population of the city of Terre Haute was over 70,000. Now it's 58,335. Folks, the numbers show a clear story of a city in decline.
Well, gentlemen, we will move on now to a board that has been in the news recently, the Vigo County Capital Improvement Board, of course responsible for many city investments, for example, the Convention Center in downtown Terre Haute. One of our viewers has a question regarding the CIB. Lyle V. asks, as mayor, you will have a seat on the CIB. What do you see of its future, and what would you like to see done next with its dollars? Mr. Bennett, you have 60 seconds.
You know, I've been fortunate to be on the board from the beginning. Our first goal was to get the convention center done. We got that done under budget and on time. Very proud of that facility, and we're every month we hear more and more positive reports from that. The next project in line is our Indiana Theater. That's been donated to the CIB now. That is officially part of our property. And we're beginning to work on the tools and the pieces of that we need to do to put that back into use in our community. The third piece is what was just announced this week for a sports complex and some water features associated with that. We've done a tremendous amount of research about what it takes to meet some of the issues that we've identified, and some of the things that will help us deal with problems here by bringing more people into our community, by visiting these type of tourism related components that we're seeking. So the money that comes in for that will go towards those type of projects. That has to go to that. It can't go to anything else except arts related or tourism related projects.
And Mr. Sackbun, you have 60 seconds.
When looking at the Capital Improvements Board, my focus is not just on the parks and the sports complex and a pool, but also a key word here, which is accessibility. Accessibility. I look at the locations of all these projects frequently. I look at the locations of some of our current parks, and I ask myself this question: can a young child walk or ride their bike to these facilities? And I understand the drive towards tourism. I completely agree with the announcement that was made yesterday. I do think we need a water park. I do think Deming Park finally needs to be revitalized after year after year after year of saying we're getting a community pool. But I also ask myself this question: can a young child who might not have a parent able to drive them to some of these facilities go out with their friends and make it to some of these parks and some of these water parks and these sports complexes? Accessibility is in the back of my mind when discussing anything with the Capital Improvements Board.
All right, gentlemen, now Americans, as you all know, have faced a lot of higher costs on everything from food to gasoline. Also, inflation has increased. Poverty has been an issue here in the Terre Haute area. According to the 2020 census data, Terre Haute has a poverty rate of more than 25%. So our question is, how do you plan to combat poverty levels? Mr. Sackbun, you have 60 seconds.
To combat poverty levels and to fully enact social mobility, I think it through threefold. The first being workforce development. See, I sat in on some of those seminars about workforce development, and it just frustrated me seeing, compared to all the other regions in Indiana, how far behind we truly were. When I look at workforce development, I then think in terms of transportation and education. The Vigo County School Corporation graduation rate sitting at about 78%. I asked myself, what can we do to get the other 22% graduated and employed in the workforce? I think it through in terms of adult education and transportation to and from the house to the employer. That can be done through public transportation. It can be done through sidewalks, walkability, bike paths, biking to and from work. Poverty is an issue that no mayor can solve alone. But with the right team, with the right state, we can beat it here in Terre Haute, Indiana.
And Mayor Bennett, you also have 60 seconds to respond.
You know, poverty is a critical issue. You know, household incomes is part of our community plan that we are driving towards all the time. Those are the kind of jobs that we're bringing to this community. Right now, there's over 1,000 jobs available right here in Terre Haute, Vigo County, in the manufacturing sector, in the healthcare sector. Most of those jobs are paying $22 to $25 an hour to start, yet we're having trouble filling those positions. We've got to have stronger families where there's, you know, people are able to earn enough money to be able to raise their family in our community. So we've identified that, we know that, but it's a long haul to be able to make that happen. And the mayor's not going to do that. It's going to take a team. There's no question about that. We've got a whole bunch of people working on it, but it's the key is having those good paying jobs that people can move up to and then backfill those that are new to the, you know, whether high school graduates or just out of college. There has to be a pathway for people to be able to make more money. So I think, you know, it's not an easy thing, and anybody that tells you it is would be not being truthful, but we're taking it on.
All right, we're going to move on to some major healthcare news that you both probably have heard about recently. Earlier this month, Union Health announced it acquired Terre Haute Regional Hospital. So our question now is, what is your initial reaction to Union Health's acquisition of Regional Hospital? And do you think that it is a good thing for Terre Haute? Mayor Bennett, you have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I was caught off guard by a little bit because I thought the whole thing was dead. You know, it had been talked about for about 3 years, and the legislative action happened to allow it to occur, but it just went quiet for the last year. So I was a little bit surprised when they decided to sell out to Union Hospital. You know, I've met with both CEOs, talked to them about what their plans are, where they're headed. I think there's some opportunity for some good things to come out of this. I think we're going to get more specialized services in our community. There's some more training opportunities, but nobody really knows the exact plan yet. It's probably going to be a year before everything happens where it really transitions completely. It's going to be a process. So, you know, the things I've heard so far from even the employees has been very positive, but they're still waiting to see what's going to happen. So I'm supportive of those two organizations doing what they're doing, and we'll have to see what the future holds and what that looks like a year from now, let's say.
All right, and Mr. Sackbun, you have 60 seconds.
Absolutely. When I caught wind of this deal, my first kind of thought was, okay, with now one major hospital employer in town, what more can we do to create a pipeline from the classroom to the medical room? When you look at a community like Terre Haute, one of its hidden gems, one of its biggest assets is the medical community. Senior citizens, veterans, young families with kids all look at hospitals when they're moving to cities across the United States of America. As mayor, I would be supportive of this deal as it goes through and see what avenues they need to make it succeed. I do look at property tax implications of one company taking over the other, but at the end of the day, my focus is this. How do we get more Hoshian kids into the medical room? Will this deal help that? Can we partner with Union Hospital to continue to grow some of the programs we currently have or even add more to? Those are just some of my thoughts when reviewing the Regional Hospital and Union Hospital deal.
Well, gentlemen, our next topic tonight is infrastructure, and many of our viewers submitted questions about road conditions. So the question first, how would you prioritize road improvement projects in the city? Mr. Sackbun, you have 60 seconds.
So when we look at the city engineering department and we review the GIS data mapping, it actually shows that the average street rating has declined from 2020 to now. It's on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being bad, 1 being good, and we're currently sitting at right over a 3. So I would find the quality streets, the ratings, and attack those and say, hey, this is where we need to prioritize. I also noticed in this year's city budget with about $440,000 more for streets and paving, kind of only covers the increase cost that goes into paving. We've got to add more to that pot. I mean, we're giving abatements left and right. Have we had the conversation with some of these companies saying, hey, would you give just a little bit so we can pave some of the roads within our city? We've got to find a way to increase that. Casino revenue is a possible source that we can use, but we need to invest in our streets, in our sidewalks, in our curbs. Invest in ourselves.
And Mr. Bennett, you have 60 seconds.
Okay. We're spending nearly $4 million a year between paving and sidewalks, and that's more than any administration's ever spent in our history, considering there isn't a lot of new revenue. If you're going to spend more on streets, you're going to have to cut in other areas, and people depend on the services we deliver, and so we're using as much money as we possibly can to do that. We use a robotic system that evaluates our streets every 2 years, and we've paved quite a few streets, but over time, they obviously deteriorate. They're all scored, and every year we select the streets that have the biggest impact in our city. I'm very proud of what our engineering department's been able to do. We spend every penny of that that's allocated, that the council approves, and we're going to try to increase that as we move forward. There are some new revenue sources that may be helpful, including the casino, but we use the funds that are strictly given to us with state rules about what we can spend on the streets. We use all of that to make that happen. And so I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. Can we do more? Yes.
If I might add?
Yes, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal, Mr. Sackbun.
So some cities around us really have this great public-private partnership when it comes to sidewalks, specifically one mayor down the road, Clint Lamb and Sullivan. Essentially, if you're a business owner and you'd like to get your sidewalks done, you can actually pay for it, and he'll provide the manpower as well as some of the costs as well. A true public-private partnership to help some of those streets and sidewalks that might be lower on the priority list move up. These are just some of the avenues that we can take to continue to add more to the pot as we look at the street department and our roads and sidewalks.
And Mayor Bennett, you have the opportunity for 30 seconds.
Well, you know, that's easy to say that they do that in a smaller community around here, but we have things that we need to follow when it comes to bidding projects. We also have bargaining agreements with our employees that there are certain tasks they do, certain tasks other people do. So there's much more to the story here than just making that statement. You know, it's a challenge. I'd love to be able to do a lot more, but we do as much as we can, and we'll continue to do that as we move forward.
And Mr. Sackbun, you have a final 30 seconds.
There have been proven strategies across the state of Indiana that communities even larger than us are doing. To simply state there's more to the story, it's okay to say, hey, we're just going to get creative and look outside the box and take the good from other communities. We've got to try something new because, as I previously mentioned, the average rating of your street is getting worse. It is going down based off what we're doing now. So obviously we've got to change.
And we do have a follow-up question for you both on this topic of infrastructure. The question, what overall infrastructure fixes are needed in Terre Haute? Mr. Bennett, we'll start with you, 60 seconds.
You know, one of the big ones we're going to have to tackle is our sewer system. You know, been talking about it for years. Some of our sewers are built in the 1860s, and so we have issues with that. They're going to be extremely expensive to deal with that. People don't see it, but we have to deal with it. We've got to replace the Locust Street sewer, the Ohio Street sewer. We have to build another interceptor along the river. Those projects are going to be a couple of $100 million over the next 30 years. That's a big one. And obviously streets. You know, we want to do more and more. If we wanted to pave all the streets in Terre Haute, right now it would be about $300 million to do that. If all 750 lane miles of streets. Well, we don't have that kind of money right now, but we have to continue to make those investments each year. We do that. But those are the two biggest, our streets and our sewer system.
And Mr. Sackbun, you have 60 seconds.
When I hear conversations about renovating and updating the sewage system year after year, I think to myself, well, that doesn't pass the smell test. It's been 16 years. We've got to have a codified and finalized long-term control plan that is approved. We've got to look at every revenue source to update our sewers. I mean, everyone's seen the rising sewage bills, some more for commercial than residential. But at the end of the day, sewage, stormwater, and wastewater are three areas where our city must adapt and must grow. We've got to work with the state on this, potentially reaching out for state funding. A lot of folks don't really notice, but I always think of it this way. Is government doing the routine things routinely? Can you wash your hands? Can you use the bathroom? Can you turn the lights on? It's a different way of thinking, but it's simple, and it shows the need to prioritize stormwater, wastewater, and sewage.
Quick rebut.
You can rebuttal. 30 seconds, Mayor.
You know, our long-term control plan's been submitted for over a year now. We're waiting on the federal government and the state government to approve it, and it'll get approved just like it did last time. You know, this stuff is expensive. Keep in mind that our sewer bills in the city of Terre Haute average $48 a month. That's much lower than many cities our size, and the bigger ones are twice that. So our citizens are paying a fair rate for that. The problem is the federal government is forcing these unfunded mandates on us to be able to have to spend more.
And Mr. Sackbun, you have a 30-second response.
Well, when you look at a state like Indiana, currently Senator Young in the past voted with President Joe Biden on the Infrastructure Act. And if you look at the state and the federal level, you see a clear partnership and relationship to address infrastructure in cities like Terre Haute, to rebuild our nation, to rebuild our bridges, to rebuild our sewage system. We've got to find opportunities to lobby at the State House, to work with others to get more increased funding to address this problem.
And Mayor Bennett, one final 30-second response.
You know, we can't just tax people to death to be able to do things. We have to use good, smart, common sense to use the funds we have to make these things happen and do it in a timely fashion as best as you possibly can. Terre Haute doesn't qualify for most of the grants that are out there. We're an entitlement city, so we don't get the luxury of getting what the small Class 3 cities get. We can't even apply for those funds. The state doesn't give us any funds for wastewater either. We can borrow money from them, and we've done that, but they won't give you any money. They don't give Class 2 cities any money.
All right, we're going to turn now to the casino. The Terre Haute Casino Resort is expected to draw more than 1 million people every year. So our question, what infrastructure changes are needed to ensure that the east side can accommodate the influx of visitors to the casino? Mr. Sackbun, we begin with you. You have 60 seconds.
My mind quickly relates to the streets in and around the casino. There's a small hill as you go over Margaret, headed towards Fruit Ridge, that actually is a blind corner over at Stratford Hills. I think of the four-way stops, the two-lane intersections, and I ask myself this. If someone from out of town or someone in town is moving towards the casino, is it safe to get there? Is it safe for a fire truck to get there? Is it safe for a police car to get there? So when it comes to infrastructure, my mind goes to the sidewalks, the streets, in and around the casino. But furthermore, when we take a look at the casino and the east side, I ask myself this. Is the downtown, where a lot of spending occurs, retail and restaurants, is the mill, where a lot of spending occurs, kind of over on that west side by the river, connected to the casino? We've got to connect these up-and-coming tourist hotspots to grow our local economy. So that way, if you're in town to play a blackjack game, you can catch a concert, you can go eat downtown at the Saratoga, all quick and easy.
All right, and Mayor Bennett, you have 60 seconds.
You know, it's possible there could need to be some changes made in the future. You know, the MDOT did a big study on that to determine traffic flows and what we think is going to happen with the casino. That's all on them. It wasn't from the perspective of the casino had to be able to prove that if they located there, the traffic flow would have to work, and MDOT agrees that it will work. They're paying for the infrastructure out there, the turn lane, the traffic signal that'll be in front of the casino, and the road behind the casino. They're paying for all that on their dime. We negotiated that with them, so there wouldn't be any cost to the taxpayers. So There's going to be a lot of people. As you mentioned, 1.2 million people is kind of the number that we're hearing that's going to visit the city, and we'll have to monitor that as we move forward. Remember, 46 is a state highway. It's actually a federal highway now. It's US 40 and 46. That's NDOT's responsibility, and they're going to watch it very closely if we need to make some improvements to Margaret Avenue, and we'll do just that. The plans are already done. We just need to roll out the project as soon as the casino traffic we'll be able to know if that's going to meet the need.
All right, thank you, Mayor Bennett. Yes, Mr. Sackbun, your question? Do you want a rebuttal? Is that what you asked?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, you have 30 seconds.
So yes, some of those are highways as previously mentioned, but let's take a look at something that isn't, and that's Fruit Ridge. Every time I drive on Fruit Ridge in my Ford Escape, sometimes I get close to falling off the side of the road. I can't imagine in an emergency situation what an ambulance or what a fire truck could look like with 1.2 million visitors coming to the city of Terre Haute. Again, we're playing checkers when other communities are playing chess. We've known this casino is coming for years, and we've not done a good job of addressing infrastructure around it.
All right, Mayor Bennett, you have 30 seconds to respond.
We've known about this for a few short years. Some of the projects that have been designed out there were done way before we knew a casino was coming. We just got this approved in 2019. Our fire trucks and ambulances are not falling off the street. That's not happening. Yes, there's work that needs to be done, and as the traffic increases, we're going to know exactly whether we need to go to 3 lanes or potentially 4 lanes. But to build it now and just assuming things would be unwise. We need to use the data to drive those decisions.
Well, we do have a lot more to get to tonight. Mr. Sackbun, you do have one last 30-second rebuttal.
Yes, absolutely. And when we look at the data, we see the increased amounts of runs that the fire department has to do and an incoming casino, and oftentimes those bring increased crime. It bears the question of what is the public safety plan for the east side as we bring in 1.2 million visitors to Terre Haute. Again, yes, it got approved in 2019, so in 4 years, what codified steps have we made to accomplish a public safety plan and an infrastructure plan on the east side?
All right, we're getting ready to head to break now. When we come back, we're going to talk about the housing needs in Terre Haute and collaboration when it comes to hosting large events in the city. Stay with us.